Hi, we are the founders of the Wheelock Family Theatre, along with Tony Hancock. I'm Jane Staab. I have white hair, blue eyes, and a very blue turtleneck sweater, wearing gray pants as well. My jobs at the Wheelock Family Theatre started as the equity actor and a director and a business manager. It expanded upon occasion with composing music for some of our original productions and other things as well.
Hi, I'm Susan Kosoff, and I'm one of the founders of the Wheelock Family Theatre. I'm wearing black pants and a black turtleneck, and I have gray hair and a Loden green vest. I was primarily the producer at the theater, but in addition to that, I did some directing and also some writing of the original scripts. Did the laundry quite frequently. A lot of the kinds of things that people do in theater, all kinds of things.
I'm Andi Genser, and I'm proud to be a co-founder of the theater. And today I'm wearing a plum turtleneck, black pants, have a little bit of gray hair, wear glasses, bunch of silver jewelry. And I really worked at the theater only for the first couple of years, and I did all the front of the house stuff. I managed refreshments and the house managers and some of our PR in the very early years, and then was, I guess, chair of the board for a while and on the board for a long time, and house managed for many, many years as well.
Mm-hmm.
And you were the photographer for the
And in the beginning I was a photographer. How could I forget that?
I don't know. Right, you're still doing it. We've been asked to answer some questions, some very good questions that the staff prepared for us. And I'm going to take a look at my phone and find them and ask them, and then we're going to simply let it happen as we go. And we'll just chime in if we have a thought about something. The first question was to tell us our origin story.
I think that's me. I'm supposed to tell the origin story. Well, Tony and Jane and I had worked together for many years at the Harwich Junior Theatre and had founded a theater on the Cape and liked very much what we were able to do, and figured out eventually that we were not going to be able to support ourselves doing it. We all had day jobs, and even if we had sold out every single performance, we were not going to be able to support ourselves. So we abandoned the theater and all went our separate ways for about 5 years. And I came to Wheelock College, where I had been a student, and taught in the graduate school. We all, in our own ways, missed doing theater and got to thinking about what it would mean to approach the administration at the college because there was a wonderful space there that was totally underutilized. And that's what happened. I wrote a proposal to the president of the college, who at that time was Gordon Marshall, and he was very receptive. He brought in a few different people to discuss the idea. Betty Fuchs, Marjorie Bach, and Betty Ann Little. That was it. That was the story. They approved it, and we brought Andi along because we figured we were never very good at promoting ourselves. We were pretty good at doing theater, but we weren't so good at telling people about it. And she was able to do that for us. So it was the four of us, and it was quite a ride.
And we were encouraged at that time by Betty Bope, who had been at Wheelock College for many years, was retired, but she was the founder of the Harwich Junior Theatre.
And I was going to say that I was kind of the non-theater person in the group, which was probably a good thing, I think. So, I had no artistic, I didn't know that much about theater except as an audience member. But what I did know was that these three people who I was working with, I totally believed in them and what your vision was. and I shared it. And then I could go out and promote it totally aggressively and enthusiastically because it kind of wasn't about me. And so that seemed to really work in the beginning especially.
Right.
Well, and we really tried very hard we knew we wanted to do some children's theater, but we didn't want it to be exclusive. We wanted to do adult dramas and musicals and family musicals, and but we wanted that special relationship with Wheelock College. And so we really chose, amongst ourselves, we chose the mission of the college for the theater as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it worked very well for us for all those years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Did you envision the theater would receive the community love that it has?
That's an interesting question to me because I think that one of the things that we were interested in, and one of the things that we had been able to do in the Cape, that mattered so much to us, was that we had created a community there, and it was a community of young people and adults, all kinds of people, and really, I think we wanted to recreate that sense of community within the theater, but also to the larger community. And, we had ways of defining what community was. And I don't know that we necessarily expected the community to love us, but we were going to love them by giving them good theater.
Mm-hmm. At an affordable price.
Right.
And making it really accessible. That was such a big thing from the very beginning was, sometimes I was the house manager, so I'd look out at the audience and think, this audience doesn't look like anybody else's audiences. It was so unique. And that was really stirring. That was wonderful. And it fit with Wheelock's mission as well.
Yes, but to seriously answer the question, I don't think any of us knew how, what a profound, what's the word? What a profound impact it would have on the community, and on not just the community audiences, but the young people and the adults and the professionals and the community actors who worked with us. We've heard from so many of them over the years, and all of them have said how much it has meant to them, and how it influenced their lives in one way or the other. And I don't think we had any idea that it was going to be quite that much of an effect.
I was thinking in the beginning, nobody knew where Wheelock was. That was a very big barrier when I was doing the PR and outreach. And so we decided to start with the people in the medical area because they were the only people who knew where it was. But most people didn't know where Wheelock was. And thinking ahead many years, then people would know the area by saying, oh yeah, that's where the Wheelock Family Theatre was.
That's true.
That was a great story about a woman who got in a taxi and said, this was someone who had been invited to the college to speak, and she told the taxi driver Wheelock College, and the taxi driver didn't know where it was. And she said, well, the Wheelock Family Theater's there. And he said, oh, I know where that is. And he drove her there. We loved that story.
Yeah.
But, not only did we start with the people in the medical area, but we also started with the alumni because clearly they knew where it was. And they became, I would say, some of our biggest fans and promoters. And it helped, of course, that many of them were in classrooms and many of them were social workers, and they could bring their constituencies to the theater as well. So,
and getting back to something you said, Andy, I used, as the director, because most of the time I was actually on stage, but when I would direct and not have to play a part, I used to sit in the back of the auditorium and look down at the people, and it did vary in terms of the numbers of people that were there, although so many of the productions had sellouts over the years. And it really was the diversity in that audience that was the most moving. And what we really wanted them to see was themselves on stage, because that would inspire them in ways that we knew would be creative. It may not have been theater necessarily, but it would inspire them to tell stories, to listen to stories, to become an actor or work backstage or go on to be a great public speaker or whatever, or just be a
good
person,
audience member.
Yeah, a person who really enjoyed theater because they saw themselves, and that was quite crucial.
But I also think we can't underestimate that it was work to do that. That didn't just happen. That
It's a lot of work.
we had to reach out and again and again to certain groups and certain people in order to let them know that we were sincere and that we really wanted them there. That it wasn't just a gimmick or something
Right.
or passing fancy.
Yes.
We had to really work at having our performances interpreted, having them described. Those kinds of things didn't just happen. I mean, what we used to have to do to get a wheelchair into the theater the first year was they'd have to go into the parking lot under the building, get into an elevator, come up, go through. It was ridiculous, but because that was why they built the first ramp. I mean, and on that it took work.
Right. And I remember doing things like, talking to people and saying, okay, I'll meet you here and I'll take you to the garage. And,
Yeah.
we just have to be like, oh, this isn't a pain. This is really important to us. We're happy to do what we want to make it easier for you to get here. We're working on it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was nonstop working, but it was joyous working. The next question is, what was your goal in starting this theater? I think we've actually said a lot of it already, but I'm sure you'll have some things to add to some of what our goals were, which was to improve the quality of life for children and their families
Through theater.
through theater.
But I think it was really to create high quality theater, really good theater was always the overarching goal. And that's, I think, what gave weight to all the other goals, to the social agenda, was that the product needed to be of the highest quality we could attain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I would agree with that. Mm-hmm. I mean, it definitely was a theater with a social agenda, and critical was the quality.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And, the truth is, the quality improved over the years.
Oh, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, for example, in designers and other directors and actors didn't know about us or didn't think about us as anything but a children's theater or whatever. And we really had to reach out to people and find them and go see shows that they were in or that they choreographed or whatever and say, hey, would you like to work here? And there were all different kinds of ways that actually happened. Sometimes it was recommended. Danila was recommended as a set designer. He was coming over from Russia and was going to be working at Emerson, right?
Yeah.
Bob Colby. And they said, we really can't afford, can we share? You want to split, and we happened to be doing Fiddler on the Roof.
Mm.
And it was marriage made in heaven. We asked Danila back so many times. He was so good. And that's what kept happening, is we would find people in different ways and bring them to the theater. And they never left. Most of them never left. Actors and everything.
I was thinking about talking about the relationships, because that really is so much the essence of the theater as well, is whether it's the relationships built with other theaters to share or to borrow or to get costumes from whatever or furniture that you need, whatever it was really building relationships far and wide. And that made a big difference.
Yeah.
It was really a lot about that.
After a 2-year in-person hiatus, Wheelock Family Theatre will return to the stage with The Wizard of Oz, a show that has been performed almost every decade since the birth of the theatre. Why is this show such a good fit for Wheelock Family Theatre, then and now?
Well, one reason that maybe some people know and some people don't is that Margaret Hamilton, who played the Wicked Witch of the West in the film, went to Wheelock College and actually came to see the final dress of our opening production of the theater on that first March, I think it was March 4th, the day before Founders Day. And so there was a history there that was kind of important. And then, it's the kind of show that they do it every Christmas on TV. There must be something there for grown-ups and for children, and it seemed to be a show that does span that age range that we want. Mm-hmm. It was a great vehicle for Jane for many times to play the
I get you, and your little dog too.
The Wicked Witch of the West. So I guess that's what was kind of special about it, and seems to make sense for the reopening of the theater.
Well, why did we do it over and over again? Is in part because we looked at the charts and looked at how well a show had sold, and Wizard of Oz was always one of the top in the list, and it had good messages about friendship and home. I mean, if I only had a heart, and then he finds out he really did all along. I mean, those kinds of messages are not just they're appealing to adults, but they're also profoundly deep thoughts for children. Without you don't have to tell them that; they can just see it in these characters. And so it had a lot to offer our audiences. But all those different Dorothys, and they were all so different in terms of personality. We're thrilled and very excited for the new Dorothy, who's been with the theater now for quite some time, since she was quite tiny. Any other thoughts about The Wizard of Oz?
Yeah.
What makes Wheelock Family Theatre special? I don't know.
You think we need to say more? We could go down and for hours on this.
Yeah, we could.
It is. I was thinking about, one of my really big memories is the first show, when we did Alice the first time, and how, there was this write-up in the Christian Science Monitor and in the Boston Globe, unexpectedly to us, and all of a sudden we had all these people came. And it was so exciting that we had like this hit, for the first show. And it was an original, you guys, with your music and everything.
That's right.
So that was, and, of course I have this memory of 3:00 in the afternoon, painting the squares with Tony, painting the last squares on the stage and saying to him, it's going to be wet for the actors. We got to get off the set.
And Tony saying, it has to be perfect.
Right. So.
Well, one of the questions I know you're going to ask is a moment that really stands out, and to pick up on what you're going to say, it was the first Sunday matinee of Alice, and I was walking from backstage up to the lighting booth, which is quite a walk, because there was no way, at that point we had no way to communicate between backstage and the lighting booth. That came later. So I was going up, and I was in the balcony, and I heard all this sound, and I looked down, and the audience was full, and it was like a moment that was so, I was shocked, I was thrilled. I mean, I'll never forget that feeling, because who knows whether anybody's going to come, and it really was because of that article in the Christian Science Monitor.
Share a favorite production.
That's so hard. I mean, there's so many that I think historically probably Lord of the Flies, and more recently Billy Elliot would be my two favorites. But I can go to each show and pick out something that was meaningful to me or I felt had an impact on people. So.
Well, my wife always teases me because I'd say, oh, that was the best show the theater ever did. So I'm totally incapable. I think there was one show we ever did that I didn't like, Phantom of the Opera. And other than that, I would say I loved every single show in different ways. You know, I appreciated them for what they were. But I think The Diary of Anne Frank and Helen Keller, I think some of those, The Miracle Worker, some of those dramas really were so moving. Mm-hmm. And, I always love watching you on stage. You know that. I'm like one of your biggest fans. So that was always just seeing you, like the different, that you could portray the Wicked Witch, and then you could be Annie Sullivan, and then you could be, just all
Emily Dickinson.
And Emily Dickinson. It was just so magical to me.
It's true that for me, anyway, some of my performances might be my favorite performances, like Emily Dickinson in The Belle of Amherst. But as a director, first of all, I'm sure they're going to laugh a little bit, but I would sit through every performance of every show I directed, almost, if I could, because I just loved watching what had unfolded. Mm-hmm. And I have to say, Where the Mountain Meets the Moon, creatively speaking, was one of my proudest productions. Mm-hmm. And but I started by answering this question the other day by saying, well, my favorite show is the show that we're doing. So it's a little bit like your friend or your
me saying
reaction, and Priscilla's friend who would come and say,
that's the best show.
That was
one thing we didn't talk about, and I just want to throw it in here because I think it was really helpful in the beginning, was having a 650-seat theater. Because we could give away tickets. We could figure out creative ways to get people in the door. And once they came back. And having having this lovely theater, like people would walk in and be like, oh, wow. I mean, I can't tell you how many times people would walk in and have that reaction. That's not what they expected, Yeah. And so that also upped the, I don't know what to call it, but there was a little wow factor. Yeah, the cachet. This is a really nice theater that we're coming to. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know. Sometimes it's little things like that make a difference that you don't expect. Yeah.
I think that all theaters right now are experiencing a reawakening or a rebirth. And I think that it's going to be challenging, but one of the advantages here is that the theater has a good history and a loyal following, I think, to help with that opening. And I know that because of the ED program continuing despite the pandemic, that they're young people and students and families who are still totally committed to this theater. And I think they're kind of dying for the for the opening of Wizard of Oz and for the theater to really be full blown again. Mm-hmm. And I don't think anybody thinks that the people, the staff, is going to rest on their laurels. I think that they know that it will carry forward and continue to be to honor the values that we started with, but to also create new memories for people. Mm-hmm. I think one of the ways in which the theater will continue is through the Sustainer program that's being kicked off. One of the things that I always worried about as the producer was the fact that we really operated more than most theaters based on our ticket sales, and it's important that we have a cushion of financial support, and I think the Sustainer programs are the way to do that. I've long wanted the theater to initiate such a program, and I'm delighted that that's happening. And I'm going to be one of the first Sustainers, because that's what we need. We need to be able to count on the fact that the theater is going to continue for another 40 years.
So we do want to ask you to check out the website, our website, and donate to the Sustainer campaign if you can. And come see The Wizard of Oz. It's going to be very exciting to have the theater reopen. We're looking forward to that.
See you opening night.